What is going on, my friends? Hank here, and today we're going to dive into some work on Tamiya's lovely new 2026 M24 Chaffee. It's a beautiful little kit, and we're going to spend a few videos going through all the painting and weathering steps of how to give this a nice, authentic, professional quality finish, even if you're new to the hobby of scale modeling. In this session, we're going to check out how to replicate this worn whitewash winter camouflage that you see on some of the very first M24s that were rushed to the front in the winter of 44-45, though of course these techniques are going to work for any winter whitewash vehicles you've got on the bench at home. With that said, let's hop right into it. Okay, so here we've got our fully built up M24. Well, it's just about fully built up. All that we've left off at the moment is the M250 cal up on the turret and the crew, more on those later. But we're fully built up, our stowage is mounted in place, and it's time to paint. We're going to begin by popping off the turret and spraying the entire kit with a coat of black primer to give us a nice even base to work up from. If you don't have an airbrush, you can do this with a Rattle Can primer as well. I like Tamiya brand spray cans personally. Be sure with the turret that you're getting all of the exposed areas of the interior primed as well. Now I know some folks are definitely going to ask, why do you build up your turrets before painting them? I prefer to construct the model as much as possible before painting because I find that handling the pieces as sub-assemblies and then trying to cement or glue everything together afterwards tends to create more visible flaws and damage to the paintwork you just did. This is totally a personal preference thing, but if I can still paint what I need to paint after assembly, that's usually the route that I choose. Alright, we've got our fully primed up Chaffee here. I do love the primed state. These blacked out kits look really cool. Speaking of interiors earlier, now is a great time to paint up the inside of our turret. Now this turret interior is going to be semi-exposed, as we'll call it, because we're going to have two hatches and a pistol port open, but we're also going to eventually have at least two crewmen in there, so you're not going to be able to see that much inside the vehicle. That said, I do want it to be the right color for what we can see, so we're going to do our best to spray the entire interior with some of this insignia white. Go slow, move around in every possible angle you can, and make sure that you get a full coverage of the inside of the fighting compartment. Once our interior color is applied and has dried completely, let's hit the entire interior space with a coat of gloss varnish to protect that work. We're going to have to fill this with some material to mask it off, and I find that clear coating it before that step is a good way to help prevent any damage or material sticking to the interior paint. Alright, now using a bit of regular toilet paper, let's go ahead and start to fill up the turret interior. This will act as a mask to protect any overspray of our main exterior color from messing up our nice clean fighting compartment. With our turret prepped for external painting, let's go ahead and spray a coat of olive drab base all over the outside of our turret. Once again, if you don't have an airbrush set up yet, this can be done with rattle cans as well. And while we have our olive drab loaded up, let's get to work on our hull. I like to start with the lower hull, road wheels, and all of the running gear first. Tightening up the spray pattern on our airbrush to a nice, precise spray, let's go around and do our best to block in only the hull, center of the road wheels, center of the return rollers, idler wheel, and drive sprocket with olive drab, and avoid getting any OD on the tracks or the rubber of those road wheels. Now, this might seem like a tedious or even impossible task, but with a little patience and a little practice, this has become my favorite way to paint lower hulls. If you do overspray too much and totally paint in a chunk of track or an entire road wheel, for example, you can always come back and brush paint in any patches, easy peasy. You of course are going to get a little bit of overspray onto the rubber and onto the tracks, but for me, that's totally okay. Once we start weathering this thing up and getting a little dirt and grime on there, you honestly can't even tell the difference between using this method versus taking the time to brush paint in every single rubber road wheel. Once we've got both sides of our running gear complete, we can move on to blocking in the rest of the hull with our olive drab base. With our major painting work complete, now is a great time to remove that toilet paper from the interior of our turret. Next, let's go ahead and spray the entire outside of our tank, turret, and hull with a coat of gloss primer to seal in our first couple layers of paint. Once our gloss coat is cured completely, now we're finally going to start prepping for our whitewash camo. We'll begin by spraying the entire outside of the model with a coat of hairspray. I find it a lot more controllable to decant some of the hairspray into my airbrush and spray it on like you would with a regular varnish coat, but if you don't have an airbrush, again, you can technically do this right from the hairspray can. Wonderful. Now that our hairspray is dried completely, we're going to load up our brush with some of that same insignia white we used for our turret interior. We're going to go around and spray a nice light misty coat of this white all over the outside of our tank, doing our best to avoid the tracks and the lower hull. How heavy you go here is totally up to you. My inspiration here is a vehicle that served in winter weather, survived that campaign, and has had almost all of its whitewash wear off or be wiped away through use and continued combat. If you want to go for a more recent whitewashed effect, go a little heavier here. As I always say, find a reference photo and try and use that for inspiration. And once we've got our white coat on there, now it's time for the fun part. Using a bit of clean tap water and a stiff bristled brush, we're going to start pulling off some of this white paint. What's happening here is the tap water is reactivating and breaking down the hairspray layer, effectively peeling or chipping away the white paint that was applied after it while not affecting the protected layers below. This technique is one you just kind of have to play with. Work around the kit, apply a bit of water, and stipple and brush away the paint. Go heavier in some places, lighter in others, and always try and keep in mind how this paint would be removed in real life. Crewmen are getting on and off the tank, it's moving through brush, it's getting rained on. Always visualize the effects of gravity, motion, and the expected functionality of the vehicle itself. I'll leave some extended footage of me working around the kit here so you can get a bit of an idea of my workflow for this technique. Okay, so once we're happy with the status of our whitewash layer, it's time to move on to the rest of our build. Alright, we've got ourselves a killer, worn winter whitewash base to start working up from. The next major step is going to be to add all of our little detailed brushwork, namely painting up all of this stowage. In the next episode, we're going to really focus on personalizing your build with unique bits of stowage to add that extra level of realism to your work. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next installment, and in the meantime, what are you waiting for? Get over to the bench and get cracking on that winter camo. I'll see you guys on the next one, and until then, be well, happy building. Cheers.